When the Allies closed in on Germany in the spring of 1945, a single bridge across the Rhine River became the focal point of a race that could shorten the war. That bridge was at Remagen, and its capture became one of World War II's last great battlefield dramas. 24 years later, Hollywood brought the story to the screen with a cast of rising stars, an ambitious European shoot, and, believe it or not, its own political controversy that nearly shut the production down. This is the story of The Bridge at Remagen, the 1969 war film that dramatized a pivotal moment in history while facing chaos of its own behind the scenes. On March 7, 1945, American troops of the 9th Armored Division approached the Ludendorff Bridge in the small German town of Remagen. To their astonishment, they found it still standing. The Germans had wired it for demolition, yet the charges had either failed or had been delayed. Acting swiftly, the Americans stormed the bridge under heavy fire and captured it before the Germans could blow it up. It was a shocking development. For the Allies, the intact bridge meant they could establish a crossing over the Rhine, Germany's last major natural defense. For Hitler, it was a military humiliation, and several German officers were executed for failing to destroy it in time. Over the next 10 days, thousands of Allied troops and vehicles crossed into Germany over the Ludendorff Bridge. Eventually, the structure collapsed, but not before it served its purpose. The war in Europe would end just 2 months later. By the late 1960s, Hollywood's relationship with World War II was evolving. The genre had matured from patriotic spectacle into something grittier, more morally ambiguous. Films like The Dirty Dozen, where Eagles Dare and Patton were challenging earlier narratives. In 1969, United Artists and director John Guillermin joined that trend with The Bridge at Remagen. The film promised not just action, but a portrayal of men caught between orders and ethics, loyalty and survival. War was no longer black and white. It was gray, chaotic, and deeply human. Guillermin, known for The Blue Max and later The Towering Inferno, brought a steady hand and a realistic style to the project. The screenplay, written by Richard Yates, yes, Revolutionary Road Yates, was adapted from Ken Heckler's 1957 nonfiction book The Bridge at Remagen, but the filmmakers took liberties. Instead of focusing on the historical figures, they created fictionalized counterparts to capture the moral complexity of the battle. At the center of the film are two men on opposite sides of the war. George Segal plays Lieutenant Phil Hartman, not to be confused with the SNL comedian, an exhausted, cynical American officer who follows orders but questions their cost. Opposite him is Robert Vaughn as Major Paul Kruger, a Wehrmacht officer assigned to defend the Remagen Bridge. Vaughn portrays him as a reluctant warrior, burdened by the futility of prolonging the inevitable. Segal was at the height of his career, fresh off Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf and King Rat. Vaughn, known from The Man from U.N.C.L.E., brought gravitas to Kruger, portraying a man trapped between duty and conscience. Ben Gazzara plays Sergeant Angelo, Hartman's hot-headed subordinate. Together, their tension reflects the psychological toll of endless combat. The film's ensemble cast included E.G. Marshall as General Schinner, Bradford Dillman, and Peter Van Eyck, each adding depth to the portrayal of a crumbling Third Reich and a worn-out American army pushing toward victory. Most war movies face production challenges. This one nearly faced a real war. Filming began in 1968 in communist Czechoslovakia, which offered the production cheap labor, period-authentic towns, and a stand-in bridge in the town of Davle, near Prague. The crew constructed elaborate sets, including a full-scale model of the Ludendorff Bridge. Hundreds of local extras were cast as American and German soldiers. But then came August 20th, 1968, the Soviet invasion of Czechoslovakia. As tanks rolled into Prague to crush the Prague Spring reforms, the Remagen cast and crew were forced to evacuate. George Segal later recalled being told to leave everything but your passport and the film canisters. United Artists airlifted the crew out of the country just hours before roads were sealed by Warsaw Pact troops. With their sets abandoned and key scenes unshot, the filmmakers scrambled to relocate. They moved production to Hamburg and Austria, reshooting certain sequences and salvaging as much of the Czechoslovakian footage as possible. In some cases, street scenes from Prague were matched to Austrian backdrops using clever editing and matte paintings. Still, the disruption caused budget overruns and delays, and the change in scenery created continuity headaches. Despite its production woes, the final film holds up as a tightly paced, character-driven war drama. Let's break down the plot. In March 1945, Lieutenant Phil Hartman's unit is pushed forward toward the Rhine. He's war-weary, skeptical of leadership, and troubled by the mounting body count. His orders: capture the Remagen Bridge before it's destroyed. Meanwhile, Major Paul Kruger is tasked with defending the bridge with minimal resources and mounting despair. He knows blowing the bridge could slow the Allies, but also trap German civilians trying to flee. Tensions rise on both sides. Hartmann's men face ambushes and brutal house-to-house fighting. Kruger clashes with his superiors, who demand fanatical resistance despite the hopelessness. Eventually, the Americans reach the bridge, just as the Germans attempt to destroy it. In a chaotic, explosive sequence, the charges fail to completely demolish the span. Hartmann leads a daring, costly assault across the structure under withering fire. In the film's climax, both sides suffer heavy losses, and the bridge is ultimately taken, but at great cost. Kruger is arrested by the SS for not destroying it. Hartmann survives, but his disillusionment is complete. The bridge stands, but no one feels victorious. One of the strengths of the bridge at Remagen is its realism. Unlike many World War II films of the era, it doesn't glorify war. The combat is brutal, loud, and disorganized. There are no rousing speeches, no hero's reward, just smoke, rubble, and exhausted men. Cinematographer Stanley Cortez, known for The Night of the Hunter, gives the film a gritty, desaturated look. Wide shots of the ruined towns and handheld combat sequences immerse the viewer in the chaos. Guillermin's direction favors confusion over clarity, forcing us to experience war as the soldiers do, through incomplete information, gut instinct, and raw fear. There are no clear villains either. Even Vaughn's German officer is presented as thoughtful and sympathetic. This ambiguity was a break from earlier portrayals of the enemy, and echoed the shifting cultural attitudes of the Vietnam era. Released in June 1969, The Bridge at Remagen was met with modest critical praise, but underwhelming box office returns. It was overshadowed by other war films of the time, like Where Eagles Dare and Patton, and didn't enjoy the marketing push that some of its competitors received. Still, it found an audience among viewers who appreciated its thoughtful, character-driven approach. For war film enthusiasts, it's a hidden gem, one that bridges the gap between old-fashioned heroism and modern anti-war realism. George Segal's performance was praised for its world-weary intensity. Robert Vaughn, in one of his most underrated roles, brought a quiet dignity to a German officer who sees the madness of the war around him. In the decades since, The Bridge at Remagen has earned a place as a cult favorite. It's frequently cited by filmmakers and historians as one of the more accurate, morally complex depictions of late-war combat. It may not have the explosive grandeur of Saving Private Ryan, but it laid the groundwork for that kind of realism. In the end, The Bridge at Remagen isn't just a story about a bridge, it's about what war does to the people trying to cross it, about men who follow orders they don't believe in, about enemies who might, in another world, have shared a beer instead of a bullet. It's also a fascinating example of a film nearly undone by geopolitical events. Filming in a country invaded mid-shoot, escaping with its footage intact, and finishing under immense pressure. If you're looking for a war movie that trades glory for grit, spectacle for substance, and patriotism for perspective, then The Bridge at Remagen is worth crossing back in time for.